Today, I have a fabulous interview for you with my friend, Nathalie Garson. Nathalie is a CEO and founder of the Born to Do business, the Global Network for Jewish Women Entrepreneurs and Leaders, and the host of the Jewish Women Entrepreneurs and Leaders podcast. Nathalie and I had a very deep conversation today. We talked about our friendship, our history together when we were in a business mastermind together. We talked about how our lives have overlapped. And most importantly for you, we talked about everything you as a Jewish woman, as a Jewish entrepreneur, want and need to know about building your business as a woman, what it means to bring feminine energy into your business, Jewish energy into your business. What's the right time of growing your business as a mom and as a woman and a wife, scaling your business? What's the difference between the two? I mean, we really went deep, but I want to let you know that on September 10th, 11th, and 12th, like in just a few days from now, Nathalie is hosting an online summit called Global Network Leadership Summit for Jewish Women, Entrepreneurs, and Leaders. It's a mouthful, but you should go. You should join us. I'll be speaking there. I'll be speaking about business and money and how much effort you need to put into your business as a Jewish woman, what is ours to do and what is God's to do. We talk about hishtadlus, the relationship between betachon, relying on God, and hishtadlus, the effort or the toil we need to be putting into our business. And that's what I will be covering in my interview. But there are 18 women entrepreneurs and leaders who will be sharing their ideas with you. Please go to my website right now, debbiesasson.com/leadership summit. That's one word, leadership summit, and sign up for this online summit because it is going to be full and rich, and you are going to walk away with something important. Now, buckle up and join me and join Nathalie for this amazing interview all about women and leadership and entrepreneurship. Let's go. Today, I have an interview with an amazing guest, an entrepreneur, businesswoman who has a big vision for Jewish women and Jewish entrepreneurs, Nathalie Garson. She is the CEO of Born to Do Business, and she's the founder of the Global Network for Jewish Women Entrepreneurs and Leaders, and the host of the Jewish Women Entrepreneurs and Leaders podcast. Before we jump into the interview, we're going to get a little bit of background from Nathalie, but I have to tell you that we met in person 5 or 6, maybe even 7 years ago. I don't remember anymore, but she shared with me the little seed of a vision that is coming to fruition right now as we speak. A global online summit for Jewish entrepreneurs. And we're going to speak about that during the interview today. So buckle up and let's go. Welcome, Nathalie.
Hey, Debbie, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to have this quality time with you and to go through this interview.
I'm really, really looking forward to it because this has been an idea that I've seen you put some steps into place since like COVID, since, the world was shut down. And that really was your time that you took off and started putting the online, global summits into place. You had another one. I participated in that. But take us back to the beginning, right? I know that, you're born in France, you moved to Israel, you lived in America. So really give us, not the, years and years of history, but a little bit, tell us where you've been and what you've done.
Sure, I would love that. I am from France, so if you do hear an accent, it is from there. And I did live in the States for close to 10 years in New York and Los Angeles. And I made Aliyah close to 20 years ago, and I live in Jerusalem. And yes, it has been quite a journey to go from one country to the next. Obviously, it wasn't only a geographical journey, it was also a spiritual one, a professional one of, as a mother, as a wife, as a, everything together, as a single mom, as we're going to talk about. And so, yeah, it has been quite a journey, I have to say.
And I think it's something interesting because our lives have crossed in so many different ways that your son, Yitzhak, actually spent many days and nights in my house before you and I even knew each other, which is just so fascinating. And then I stayed with relatives of yours once in Paris, right? like
It's
years ago.
amazing. Yeah, it is amazing. And then we met again in well, we didn't meet in Paris, but we were, in the same program. And then we met again at this mindset retreat where you mentioned that, everything started for me, at least the seed of the vision that I am fulfilling today. So yes, our paths have crossed, and I'm so happy that we get this time to talk about all this and to really share on this journey.
Lovely. So tell me a little bit, how did you decide that you love business? I mean, I also love business and I love coaching on business and money, as we know. But how did you come about business?
Yeah, that's a great question. Well, actually, as I said, I was a single mom. I started my career as a teacher. You wouldn't believe it.
I didn't know that.
Yes, I started as a teacher. You see, we always have new things to learn, right? I started as a teacher, and then I moved on to professional trainings in companies, and then I moved on to marketing of those professional trainings, and then I moved on to the strategy, and then I moved on working in a consulting firm, and so there was a very organic progression until I came to Israel 20 years ago, and I had my two kids who were 10, Yitzhak that you spoke about just a minute ago, and my daughter Rachel who was 8 at the time. They're much bigger now. They're 29 and 28. So don't even ask. I don't even know how I have to do
Like
kids,
goes
but
by the
I know,
in a
I know.
heartbeat.
I know, but at the time, that's what they were. And so when I always knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I have a very independent personality. I have tons of ideas. I'm a very creative person. And I knew I wanted to do something of my own. I didn't know what at the time, but I knew it had to be me being in my own business. But being a single mom, when I got here 20 years ago, it wasn't, really practical to start my own business, knowing that I didn't even have child support. I had to financially support myself and my two kids. And as we know, as you know, money, business needs money, right? We need to
Oh yeah.
have time, we need to invest, we need to be able to be available for it. And so it wasn't the right time for me. And so when I first came to Israel, I was like, okay, one day I'll do it, but right now I need to take care of my family. And it took me 10 years when I was in corporate and I was in high tech and I was in startup companies and I was director of marketing and I had all these job titles that can be very attractive. But for me, I always knew that my place was not in a box. I needed to
Mm.
be outside of the box. And so I went for my MBA. When my daughter was actually 16, I knew that the 18 years old mark was, coming up. My MBA was a way for me to say, okay, I want to go into the business world. I want to start my own company. And as soon as she became 18 and I had my MBA in my pocket, I started my first consulting firm 11 years ago. So being in business for me first meant to be a consultant, to help people, to give them advice, to help them see what they don't see probably in their blind spot, to
Right.
be able to go through analysis, to help them think together, to be able
Hmm.
to have this feedback, have this mirror that you can bring your expertise, but also have someone to talk about. And then after
Wait,
a while,
before you go
yeah,
on, because I want to go back. You and I again have similar but different journeys. I think I knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur really back when I was 8 and I had my own lemonade stand. So it's always been in my blood. But I've also talked about on the podcast how because my children were little and I was growing my business, I left my corporate job or my government job at the Bank of Israel when my baby was 9 months old. And I went into entrepreneurship and I kept my business really simmering. It was on low for a long time until he was 12, almost bar mitzvah. And then COVID, he had his bar mitzvah during the first year of COVID. So I got to be at home anyway because there was nowhere to go. But I want to, before, I know that there are women of all ages, all stages of life listening to this podcast. And I have spoken about knowing, actually, it was really only after the fact that I really, really could put a word to it. I knew that I was under earning when I was working at the Bank of Israel in a government job. It was safe, it brought income, right? And that was part of my journey. Certainly, like you and I are speaking, we're both in Israel, but we're both in our homes. You're in Jerusalem, I'm in Beit Shemesh. We're seeing each other on Zoom. That wasn't even available to you and to me 11 years ago or 16 years ago when my baby was born. And so I think there are two things we can talk about here before we get into the Global Online Summit, but I think it makes a difference for Jewish women, mothers who are building businesses and they have little kids, right? So we both made decisions to stay in corporate until our kids were bigger. How did having young children influence your journey? And then the second part would be, how would you advise women? I mean, an advisor, right? How would you advise women today when opportunities are different?
It's a great question. And I love that we're taking that opportunity to speak about that because I really believe that it is very important to choose the time that, someone, a woman more particularly, but anyone goes into business. And I
Mhm.
know that when I have people that come to me and say, oh, I have an idea, or, oh, I want to start my own business, or I want to leave my job, or even like I want to, spend more time in my business, I always take the time to ask them, where are you in your personal life right now? Do you
Mhm.
have small kids at home? Are you financially stable? Do you have savings? Is that something that you can afford, quote unquote? Because it is an expense, right? And
Yeah,
I know that we are impatient. And I know that when we have an idea, we're like, I want to get it done right away. This is the time. And then I do work even with women that have small kids at home and are not available. And they get frustrated because, things don't go as fast as they would like to, or they don't have the money to invest. And I think that what you and I did is really think strategically and
mhm,
think for the long run.
okay,
Meaning, yes, it's not going to happen right away. I know that I had to wait 10 years. I mean, 10 years is quite a long time, but when you
yeah,
look, it's not that long. I mean, 10 years is a long time, but I also I was able to build my experience. I was able to build my network. I was able to go back to school and do my master's in business. Though all those things were not my first choice because I knew I wanted to have a business. And during those 10 years, I was always like writing down ideas and watching things and looking at things and reading books. And it was always in the back of my mind, oh yeah, and when I'll have a business, I'll do this and I'll do that. And you also learn from that period of time, but it was a
right.
choice that I knew really that I didn't have the choice. Really, it was a choice that I made to say, you know what, I'd rather be comfortable. And about my salary in corporate, I had a very nice salary. I mean, I had a nice salary. I had the car, I had the phone, I had the computer. We weren't able to work from home at the time because, like you said,
Life was
we
different.
exactly. We didn't have Zoom and all that. I had to leave my kids, long hours.
Mhm.
They had all kinds of activities and they were with friends. So it was a different rhythm. And I felt that I was also like giving a lot of my energy to those places of work, which was what I didn't like about, me not being at the center of my life and me, serving another vision or another,
Mhm.
company. But I think that to answer your question, if I had to give advice to the women that are listening to us, is really to choose very wisely what is the time that you decide to really put all your efforts in your business. You can do things on the side. You can have, like as we say, maybe a small hobby, or you can. But if you are not ready to invest time and money in your business, don't put yourself in a situation where you're not going to be able to be successful. And then you might think it's because of you or your competence or your expertise, but it's not. It's because you don't have the time. It's because you're not available. It's because you have other priorities. And so, yeah, think about it wisely. And we're lucky enough in nowadays that we can have so many online courses and we can do so many things at any hours of the day and night, that we can build something on the side and until it is possible, whether you're a single mom or whether you're a mom with little kids or whether you don't have the financials right now or the availability. I think that it makes sense to really think wisely when is the right time to really invest in your business.
I love that. And I'm going to expand on one point because first of all, with the time, I think that as moms, if we want to, if we get our brain on board with us, we can actually be very efficient about time. I mean, the old expression of like, if you want to get something done, give it to a busy person. So you can take those 2 hours that you might have a day or just a few hours on the weekend. If you live in Israel, there's no such thing as a weekend, but leaving that aside, right? But but here's a point that I think people who grow businesses, in particular online businesses, mess up. And that is investing money in their business. And I've talked about how bootstrapping your business is the most expensive way to grow your business. Because you can find everything you want on Google. Like, hey guys, if you want to grow a business, you can just go Google almost everything, except for having a mindset coach, and your brain is going to stop you about 99.8% of the time. Leaving that aside, when you take money that you have from savings, that you have from severance pay from your work, that you have in your retirement plan, that you borrow from the bank, and you invest it in business growth, right? You invested money in an MBA. Now, granted, we're in Israel, where education is not Harvard, right? We spend way less on an MBA in Israel than people do in the United States. But business takes cash investment. And I actually have a podcast called Debt Free Entitlement, where I believe that entrepreneurs who are working online feel entitled not to invest money in their business to grow. And that will slow you down, because there are people out there who are just like 1 or 2 or 27 steps ahead of you that can help you collapse time and get there faster, whether it's Nathalie or me or somebody else that's your flavor, right? We've been in the trenches and we've done it. We can help you avoid a lot of mistakes, and we can show you how to really, really shortcut the path. So I believe, and I love that you said that investing money to grow your business is so, so important.
So
So thank
important.
you.
And I think that I speak for both of us when I say that we continue to invest money in our business,
Oh boy.
because we also need the mindset, and we also need the people to show us the way, and we also need
Yeah.
this how to not reinvent the wheel no matter what stage we're on, because as you know, every level is a new devil, right?
Yep.
Every it doesn't matter if you're a very successful entrepreneur, you have even bigger mindset traps, and you have even bigger decisions to make, and even more money to invest. And so what you're saying is true for all of us. I think that investing money in our business is a must. It's something that goes with, I mean, you're right that online business can be tricky, because we might think, oh, I don't have any expenses. I just need a computer, an internet connection, a phone, and I can just, start making money. Whereas when you want to open a restaurant or a store, we
Mhm.
know that there are some, investment at the beginning. Well, I think an online business has maybe not the same investment, and it could be easier to get out of if you want to, but you do have to invest in the foundations. You do have to invest in yourself. You do have to invest into the structure, the systems, the tools. I mean, there are so many things that you need to invest in if you want to be professional, and if you are in there for the long run, because
Right.
anyone can open an online business. The question is, do you want to be, for 6 months, for a year, for 10 years? Like, how do you want to look at your growth in the long term?
Correct. 100%. So let's take this idea, because we're talking about women, we're talking about mothers, we're talking about entrepreneurship, and I know that you have very specific viewpoints on bringing your feminine energy into building your business, like the difference between masculine and feminine. So share your ideas with us.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, we're talking to women now because, we're talking about mothers, and we're talking about women entrepreneurs. And that's also the reason why I started the global network for Jewish women entrepreneurs. It's because we spoke about my journey geographically and professionally, but spiritually, I also had an interesting journey, as you know.
Right.
I started my journey in a traditional Jewish home. I
Mhm.
became ultra Orthodox by choice, and I enjoyed most of it. And then I also decided to leave that ultra Orthodox world just before I came to Israel. And I call myself today a spiritual Jew. And throughout all of these steps and different parts of my life and my journey, I've observed women in every different areas and spectrum of Judaism, or the Jewish life. And I realized that two things they have in common, those women. One is that they all have this imprint of the Jewish DNA,
Mhm.
which we're going to talk about if we speak about Jewish leadership, if we speak about Jewish values, and whether they're religious or not, whether they're secular, whether they're very far away from their Jewish identity, it doesn't matter. There is this DNA, this imprint that is part of who they are. That's the first thing. And the second thing that I've observed is their low self-esteem and their low self-worth,
Ooh,
which is
tell us.
yes, yes. I would love to. Because this is something that I've seen that is, in my belief, part of the collective unconscious that we carry as women, not only
Wait,
Jewish women.
Jewish women or women in general?
Well, let's start with women in general, but I'm going to
Yes.
speak about Jewish women in particular because I think that there is a double collective unconscious. There is the women's collective unconscious, and there is the Jewish people collective unconscious,
Hmm.
which brought together brings some kind of battle with self-worth and with self-esteem and with being really to the full potential of who we can be. And I make a parallel between the Jewish people and Jewish women
Okay.
because the Jewish people also, as we all know, I'm not giving any history class here, went through, a lot of difficult challenges throughout the centuries.
Yep.
And I think that women and Jewish women also went through a lot of challenges, being a minority and
Hmm.
not being in the front of the scene. I'm not coming with a feminist, here talk about we need to be all equal and this is this the wrong, it was wrong. No, I'm not talking about this. I'm just saying that there are different types of dimensions and leadership, just like we have the feminine dimension, the feminine energy, and the masculine dimension, the masculine energy, and that we have both of them inside of us, whether we're
Hmm.
men or women.
Right.
And the world has gone through a big masculine energy period throughout the centuries, and it's only awakening to the feminine energy in the last 50 years or so, maybe
Right.
100.
Hmm.
Okay. But we need to rebalance that. This is what I know and I feel. We need to rebalance the energy in the world. We need to have a balanced energy of feminine and masculine so that the world can really be the potential that it can be.
Okay. So can you just describe, because I have my idea what masculine energy and my idea. So just tell our listeners, how do you see masculine energy? How does that come out in feminine, and what's the difference between them from your perspective?
Of course, a very good question. And of course, that is my perspective, right? I'm
Yeah.
not, yeah, it's not, well, to me, a masculine energy is the energy of doing, and the
Okay.
feminine energy is the energy of being.
Hmm.
So we need both. We need to be and we need to do. There's no way that we can live without one of them. The masculine energy is about fighting, is about getting things done, is about inaction, it's about short term, it's about power, it's about making sure that the world is working like it is. All the industry that we have, the roads and the beautiful technology that we're enjoying every day, this is masculine energy, which doesn't
Hmm.
mean that only men worked on it or were part of it, women too, but this is the masculine energy of things that we see are being created or being invented, innovation. It's more of the what. That's the masculine energy. The feminine energy is more of the how. It's more the collaboration. It's the glue between the people. It's the communication. It's the connection with people. It's about how do we do things? How do we feel inside of us? What are our emotion? All the emotional intelligence.
Hmm.
It's about being able to give, to nurture. This is what we need in the feminine energy. And like I said, we both as a woman or a man, we have both. And I can even say on myself, that I discovered that I had a much stronger masculine energy than a feminine energy.
Yeah. Although
Right?
it's only because we're so used to pushing, like the way we've grown up. I'm a little bit older than you, but not so much, I don't think. Um, but you and I'm 60. How old are you, Natalie? You could tell our listeners.
50.
Oh, so that's like a generation, by the way, between
Yeah.
us, right? But we're still, you and I are on like the first like row of women who are building our businesses, who are out there. I worked on Wall Street. Like I was educated to believe that I could do anything. But the only way we knew, because we didn't have feminine role models, we didn't have moms, we didn't have, our moms were teachers. Look at how you started, teachers, social workers. We kissed boo-boos, we nurtured, which is a beautiful thing. And I do not, want to throw out the baby with the bathwater. We want to hold on to that. We didn't have anybody to teach us how to be in our feminine, right? So we only knew how to be masculine. That was it. That was our role models. I'm going to add to what I see as feminine energy, and I'm like totally co-signed on what you said, because you said being, and I might like expand that to allowing and
Mm,
and receiving.
Yes, love that.
So,
Yes,
so I talk
definitely.
about receiving money, like, because I talk about money, just allowing yourself to receive money rather than have to, push, 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 but we can allow ourselves to be open, to be receptive to receiving money when we're still, when we're in our being, right? Rather than our doing, we can also receive divine downloads, receive inspiration, allow our creativity to bubble up, right? We can be more expansive when we're in that being and we're receiving messages. That's probably how you received your message
Oh,
about the Global Online Summit,
definitely,
right? And because when
definitely,
we're just allowing just like things to come to us and move through us.
definitely.
So yeah, I
And,
think there's
and
a lot there.
and I will add that I see more and more men that
Mm,
are connected or that want to connect to that
yes.
energy. And the same way that women have been, like you said, taught or even didn't have the choice but to be in their masculine energy, men are also in that cage. They're also only able or think that they're only able to be in that masculine energy. And a lot of them are want to connect more to that feminine energy, and that's why the balance is so important, because we need to allow this balance inside ourselves but also in the world, that
Hmm.
there is this approach of feminine and masculine, and that no one is, I mean, no one is pushed into a direction more than another, or no one is stopped in one another direction, because at the end of the day, the balance, I believe that the balance of the world is going to be a reflection of our internal balance and our internal alignment. And that's why, for me, this mission of the global Jewish women entrepreneur is such an important mission, because I do believe that women need a little bit more push, because they have a little bit more, few centuries, a little bit more,
Millennia,
yeah,
a few
exactly,
millennia.
a few millennia to catch up. And
Yeah.
so there is something that has to be done with women to give them back that power within themselves, not against anyone, and not to fight, and not, of course I'm for equal rights, and of course I'm for everyone to have equal opportunities, but that's not my fight. At least I know that some other people do it. My fight, my cause is really about giving back this power to women, because it is in their DNA, it is in our DNA, and the
Hmm.
self-worth that we need to be able to be the leaders that we are is the little push that we need. And that's why my focus is definitely on women, on Jewish women.
Mm. I love that. And I think the men that are embracing more of their feminine, it's because they're burning out. Like
Yes.
men and women, and especially women, because the fact that you and I both took our time and we stayed with our kids more than we built our businesses at certain periods of our life, I think was to prevent the burnout, because we can have it all, but not necessarily all at the same time.
Yes. And
Or we,
and the what you have is not really enough with the how you have it, right? I mean, you could have a business, but how do you have it? Like, how do you get to there? Do you
yeah.
get to there fulfilled, and, like you said, with an abundant mindset, and rested and allowing and receiving, or do you get to there with hustling and with your fist clenched, and how do you get there? That's also very important.
Nice. Nice. So tell me a little bit. We're going to talk about the summit in a second, but just about your journey with money, because even the scarcity that so many women have about investing in their business for growth, or looking at their numbers and managing their numbers and knowing, and I know because you focus, one of the big areas that you focus on with your clients is systems and financial systems. So tell us a little bit about your journey with money and then what you learned, if you want to share any mistakes, because we all make mistakes. Nobody gets there with, A plus plus on their tests all the way through. And then,
Sure.
and how you bring that to your clients, just tell us.
Yes, of course, of course. So I know you speak a lot about money stories, and this is something that I learned from you, actually. And I had a big money story.
Mm,
I think maybe everyone does. I think
I think
maybe
so.
the also the awareness of having a money story is also already a big step. And for me, that was a big aha moment when I understood that everyone has a money story. And when I looked at my money story, I realized that even though I was brought up in a comfortable home, and even
Hmm.
though I never lacked of anything, but there was definitely scarcity in my home growing up. And the
Okay.
scarcity came from it didn't matter if we had money or we didn't have money, we felt that we didn't have. You know, that feeling that it doesn't matter if there is money or not, we're not going to spend it because we never know. Or it's better not to do this because we didn't know. And we always joke at my siblings that we never knew if there was money or not. Like we always felt that, you know, someone was doing us a favor, right? And not, and even if there was money and it wasn't the question. So I think that this scarcity mindset was something that I was brought up with and that I wasn't even aware of until I realized that there was another way of looking at money from an abundant point of view, from there is more and there is enough for everyone, and everything that you teach so beautifully. And this is something that not only I'm saying this because I think that if people are listening, it's not just, you know, understanding your money story, it's also understanding that there is such a thing as money story. Like it's
Right.
understanding that you have to be aware of this before you even do the work. For me it was something new,
Mm-hmm.
and when I realized this I was like, wow, I'm coming from far. I mean, I'm sure that some people are coming from further, and you know, about not to compare, but I felt that we had so much to work on in my family and where we're coming from. And then I decided, like I do all the time, is like, okay, mindset, we need to tackle this. Right? You and I believe
Yeah.
that it all starts with mindset, right?
Yeah.
So I was like, yes, mindset, it doesn't matter. And then I realized that it didn't matter how much strategy I had or how much beautiful marketing campaign I could have or even how many clients I could have. It didn't matter if my money mindset was not in the right place,
Right.
nothing would work, right? You
Right.
know that.
Yep.
And so I did some work on this, and I really, and I still do. I think that's something that I continue to do all the time to catch myself. You know, when something is, you know, based on fear or something, like a decision is like, oh, I'm afraid. So I'm always looking at the big picture, looking at the vision,
Mm-hmm.
believing in it is going to happen, right? The law of
Mm-hmm.
attraction, the big believer in the law of attraction. And so I think that in my business, there were some mistakes, and not too long ago, I realized that when I was scaling my business, I was scaling it too fast. And this is something
Oh,
that, yeah, it
tell
was
me.
something, yeah, it was really interesting. And that's why today, you know, I'm an expert in scaling because I went through the mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
I went through the mistakes, and I think that in order to be able to be a good mentor, you have to go through some of the mistakes to be able to say, don't go there, I've been there, this is not working. And one of the mistakes was to grow too fast, to scale too fast, to hire too many people.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't too many at the time, but then when you realize that, when you were talking about burning out, when you
Mm-hmm.
realize that it's too big, it's growing too fast. So great, the numbers are great, the clients are happy, the team is working, and you feel like on top of the world, except that maybe when you go too fast, it's not that feeling. You're not on top of the world, you're like running after yourself and running, you know,
Yeah.
in the exactly. So those are all mistakes, quote unquote mistakes, because I think that there are stages. And by the way, this is what I see in my clients. I see that, you know, I always talk about the different stages, the launching stage, the growing stage, and the scaling stage.
Yep.
And just like a money story, I think that just being aware of the fact that there are stages is already, you already know where you are, where you're going, and what's going to happen. And the growing stage is a stage where you want more clients, more money, more marketing, more of everything, and it's great. But when you get to the scaling stage, you're overwhelmed. You're almost burnt out. You're at the end of your rope. You're like, yeah, you have the clients, you have the money, but where's the time? Where's
Mm-hmm.
me? Where's my lifestyle? Like, right? Where do I belong here? And then you start to hire, and you need to have systems, and that's where I come in. So you asked, how do I do it with my clients, and specifically with the money, is that I come in with creating those systems that are going to be able to allow you to save money, right? To save
Yep.
time, to
Mm-hmm.
save money. So those systems are not only tools, because tools is the technology or technical expertise of
Mm-hmm.
using this software or that software, but my consulting background and my years in corporate is
Mm-hmm.
helping me also build a strategy around systems, around processes, around how do we do things in our business so that we don't spend 10 hours doing something that we can spend 1 hour doing. And that, of course, includes also the team. hiring people, whether it's freelancers or outsourcing or a VA or someone in your business. But then all of a sudden we ask the question of money. When do I invest? When do I hire? Right?
And then we'll
when do
just do it all ourselves and work 28 hours a day and not sleep and eat, right?
Exactly. And so that's when the strategic planning comes in. And what I do
Yes.
with my clients is every 3 months, we have a strategic planning day where we go through, I mean, I really help them go through their finances more than every 3 months, but at least every quarter,
Okay.
to really go through their, what I call their key numbers.
Hmm.
Okay, the big numbers that every entrepreneur needs to know. And if they don't know those numbers, they're not entrepreneurs, or they won't stay entrepreneur for a long time.
So just tell us
Because
what those three are. So anybody listening who is not ready to invest with you will know those numbers.
the key numbers, well,
Yep.
the key numbers are, I just made it up, and I'm sure, you know, as a money coach, you know them better than anyone. But I'm talking about the revenue, right? Money you're making, the number of clients that you have, your
Yep.
average price, how much
Hmm.
money to invest in marketing, how much money to invest in health, and you know, what are your projections? Those are basically, you know,
Nice.
projections in terms of what are you going to make in the next 3 months, and what are you going to spend, and what is your profit. So it's basic numbers, but again, those are the key numbers that you need to know in your business in order to know what you're doing. And it's interesting because in the growing stage, we're so obsessed with having more clients that sometimes we just go from one marketing campaign to the next without even looking at the metrics, looking at the conversion rate, looking at the time we spend. We just do it, do it, do it, do it more. But when we get to the scaling stage and the numbers are bigger, we can't afford to do that. Before we do a marketing campaign, we need to make sure that we have the metrics from the previous campaign, that we know how much we're going to invest in the next quarter. So the scaling stage is a stage where everything needs much more strategic planning, much more
Hmm.
thoughtful, very, very serious look into your business. And that's also why fewer people get to the scaling stage, because it's like a, you know, it's like a step that you have to take. Like, are you the CEO of your business? Are you ready to be the CEO of your business?
I just love this. You and I, we haven't spoken. I think it's probably been more than a year since we've spoken, but we're so on par. And I love what you said about when you're in the growing stage, you're just like clients, 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 and you're going out and you're serving or whatever. And if anybody's not doing that, I just want to, this is my opinion. You can tell me if you agree or not. I think that what will hold people back in the growing stage is trying to get all of their foundations perfect, all the I's dotted and the T's crossed. And they need to spend more time on client acquisition and less time on their foundations. But I remember like about a year and a half ago where I hit that point, it was like, like I can't do this anymore. Now it's time for me to scale. And I had 19 clients. I still had two financial planning clients, and like there, and and a mom of a big family, thank God. And it was just, yeah, it was time, and learning how to make that switch, being in the messy middle. And it's
Mm.
messy because you're still serving your one-on-one clients, you're figuring out how to scale, you're investing in yourself, right? It's a whole new level, new devil, as you correctly pointed out. And if you're there, to anybody listening, don't give up. It's messy and it's worth it. But don't give up. Don't give up.
Definitely, definitely. And I speak a lot about money generating activities, right? I
Yeah.
mean, when you're in the growing stage, that's your first focus. Like 80% of your time needs to be money gener. So it's sales calls and scheduling more sales and more campaigns and more talking to people on the phone and in private
Yeah.
message and in like, this is the selling, this is the name of the game, because you cannot look at your systems and hiring and, you know, building a whole infrastructure if you don't have the, you know, the meat, which is
Yeah.
the clients and the money, to be able to make that whole system work. So I definitely agree with you that the growing stage needs to be totally focused on clients. And then once you get to that overwhelm, hopefully a little bit before, I always say like a little bit before full capacity, right? You have to know what is your full capacity, take like a few months before and start already, because when you get to full capacity, you're like, you know, have no time for nothing. So yeah, but it's being in that messy and not being afraid, because you will get on the other side and you will be able to, if you hold on tight with your clients, continue to give an amazing service build your systems and start hiring a team, that's when you're preparing yourself for the long term, definitely.
Yeah. So I would probably, because I was in my masculine, I just went over capacity, but that's okay. It's
So
just
that's
who
what
I
I did.
am. It's who I
This
am
is
and what I
exactly
do.
what I did. This is exactly what I did. And then when I came out of it, I was like, okay, another thing that I learned that I'm going to be able to, be
Help
inspired
people with.
from. Of course, it's never, I mean, even though I think you and I were business coaches, business mentors, doesn't mean that we don't go through our own cycles
Oh
and we
yeah.
don't go through our own mistakes. And I think that what makes us real is that we can talk about it and we can
Yeah.
teach from it. So that's what I think that's why it's important to talk about it.
Wonderful. And I'm going to add one more point for anybody in the growth stage of her business, is that it's so important that you focus more on what you say, the money generating activities, and you're getting clients and you're serving clients. And I don't even think up till $100,000 you really need a website. Even if you're on social media, not all my clients are, but like you could have a beautiful six-figure business by advertising on social media, or if you're not there, there's WhatsApp groups and there's neighborhood groups, etc. You don't even know really who you love working with and who you love serving until you've worked with a lot of people. So don't invest in a website, because you're just going to have to change it. I'm sure you'll have to change who you're working with and what you're doing, and don't invest in the copy. Don't invest in, all these foundational pieces that are very likely to change in the next 12 to 24 months. Just go out there and find people and work with them and refine your skills as a business owner.
I totally agree with you, but this is a fight that I've stopped fighting a long time ago.
So I'm fighting it right here on the airwaves.
And I'll tell you why, because I realized and I understood that this whole website and copy and branding thing, people, that are focusing on that so early in the game, like you said, I totally agree with you on a strategic level, but I realized that it was part of building their identity as entrepreneurs.
Yeah,
And that
it's
and
true.
that even every time I have a client that says I need to invest in my website, I do the pitch like exactly I do the same thing. I'm like, don't invest. But then I said, you know what, if it makes you happy, if it's about this ego thing, that I have a website, I have a logo, I have something. And you know what, maybe it's part of the process. I mean, I did it. I had a very stupid website when I started and I had to redo it, of course. But then I just say, you know what, if you want to just like have a small budget, just give yourself a little gift. It's not going to help you, but do it for yourself. So that's my take on that. But I agree with you. Strategically, it's definitely the right thing to do.
Right. It's a little bit of the mindset, because when we have our little home on the web, we sort of we've got our brain on board with us. Because look,
Exactly.
8 billion people in the world can see that I have a website, so I must be real.
Yeah, exactly. Something like that. So I'm like, you know what? If it makes you feel good, just do it. But on the marketing perspective, it's not really going to, help you. But that's, we have to go through those steps apparently.
All right. So tell us now about the Global Online Summit for Jewish Women, because that's who's listening to the podcast. That's who we're inviting into the summit. I look forward to being a speaker on the summit. So tell us all about it.
Yeah, sure. So, like we said, the global network started 3 years ago. When during COVID, I started those Zoom meetings, thinking that people needed to connect, women from all over the world, Jewish women from all over the world wanted to connect with women entrepreneurs in Israel. There was this push of, we need to go back to the roots. We need to, even people wanted to travel, couldn't come to Israel. It was like a trauma, right? It was, so there was this whole movement of we need to reconnect to the roots. And this online meetup, monthly networking meetup, started to grow and grow and grow up to today, where we are more than 1,000 women in the global network. It's really amazing.
Amazing.
It's amazing. From 18 countries altogether. Like we had over 3 years, people coming from 18 countries. I can't even believe it when I say it. It's just something that has a life of its own. Apparently, there is a need for connection from within the Jewish connection, the Jewish community. And we're talking about women that come from all the spectrum, really, of from ultra orthodox to completely secular to, and that's also the beauty of it, because it's really about connecting to our Jewish identity through our business, through our collaborations, connecting to Israel through, I'm, in South Africa, or I'm in Brazil, or I'm in, in France or the UK, and I want to have this emotional connection with Israel. I can't maybe come right away, or I can't travel, but if I have a collaboration or a friend or a strategic partner in Israel, I feel like I'm really connected to the Jewish people. And that is the goal of the global network. It is a business network in the sense that it's entrepreneurs and leaders. So
Okay.
everyone has either a business or an organization or a nonprofit, but it's really about the connection between the Jewish people around the world and Israel, and us here in Israel. And so after 3 years of being online, we all wanted to meet in person. That was the goal. And the goal is going to happen in January 2024, where we'll have our global conference. We're expecting 100 to 200 women in Jerusalem, talking
Amazing.
about women and leadership, women and nonprofit, women in politics, women and business, women in Judaism, with everything that has to change in the Jewish, leadership, and women in Israel, having roundtables on Jewish values, roundtable on industry leadership. It's a leadership conference. And in order to talk about that leadership conference and tell the world that it's happening, what better way than to gather 18 amazing women that you are a part of, that are going to speak about Jewish values, that are going to speak about how to align and integrate our Jewish values in our business and our leadership. And it was really about positioning that conversation, that, raise awareness around, we don't have to have separate lives, like my Jewish life and my business life and my leadership. We can bring it all together and be that leader woman that we already are, because if we are entrepreneurs, we're already leaders, but know
Right.
how to connect all the dots, all the DNAs. Like, my Jewish values need to be part of my business. My
Mhm.
feminine leadership need to be part of who I am. As a mother, as a wife, everything together, we're one person, and to rebalance, like we said, with the energy, so that women are even stronger from that power. So the online summit is happening. It's happening on
Amazing.
September 10th.
Wow. Just a few
Yep,
days from now.
I
And
know.
and I have to say, when you said that, like, we have to bring all of who we are, our Jewish values, our feminine values, the fact that we live in Israel. And I will say, for anybody listening, that when I first showed up on Facebook, where back in the day, that's where I did most of my social media marketing, I didn't want to talk about the fact that I was in Israel. Right. I mean, it's funny that, or it's ironic now that my podcast switched over from Mastering Money and Midlife, and it's now the Jewish Entrepreneur Podcast, but I didn't know how, or I was afraid to bring that part of me online. And I love that you're leading this movement and saying, let's bring all of who we are. Let's, connect our tribe, other women who also share values, and let's unite, let's get together, and let's grow our leadership and our Jewish values and our feminine values all together. And let's be more of who we are, and not, really like hide parts of ourselves. Because when you are really more of who you are, when you're doing what you say, what you're born to do, right? And that means not hiding, you're completely authentic, then you're also attracting the real people, quote unquote, real people that you're meant to serve, because they can see all of you.
Yes.
And I've worked with people who aren't Jewish, and they love my Jewish values. I have a
Yes.
client I'll be working with this week, and because we're both God centered, she's like, I want to work with you. And
Yes.
she knows I'm in Israel, she knows I'm Jewish, she knows I'm religious, and that was important to her when we started working together. So if anybody's still, listening to this podcast, concerned about sharing her values, so Nathalie and I are both advocates of just letting the world know who you are and what you stand for.
Exactly. And it is a process. I remember the first time that I realized that I wanted to niche with Jewish women, I was scared. I was
Uh-huh.
so scared because
Thank you for saying that.
yes, yes, because it meant, first of all, it meant saying no to people, like men that say, how come I cannot join? And you have
Mhm.
to say no. It meant to say no to people who are not Jewish. I mean, sorry for everyone who is listening. There's nothing wrong with not being Jewish, but it's a group of Jewish women. And so that's what
Yeah.
unites us. And so it meant really coming out in the world in a very strong, statement that said, this is who I am, this is my people, this is who I want to serve, this is who I want to be with. And it's always scary. You get that fear of, I'm going to be seen, put in a box, and no one wants to be put in a box. And so it was scary, but I think that the same fear turned into strength. It's like
Yeah.
the same, like it was proportionate, like the same size of fear turned into strength that was exactly aligned with who I wanted to be and who I wanted to serve. And it was like all the pieces of the puzzle were falling into pieces. Like it was like, yeah, this is exactly where I need to be. And I have to say, you spoke about divine, inspiration. And I have to say that it was almost like a rite of passage. That this fear, like, was almost like, are you ready
Mhm.
to go beyond the fear, to go above that? And if you're not, it's okay. You'll just have to wait a few more years until you are. But after that fear, it was almost like I felt, okay, I'm ready for this. I'm ready for that. This is where I'm being shown the way. And I have to say, in all modesty, really, really all modesty, I feel like this global network is much bigger than I am. It's something that I feel is being led by something that I'm just the right person at the right place doing something to make it happen. And that's also why we're starting a nonprofit from this, because it felt that this was not part of my business. This was something that was much bigger. With volunteers, we have today more than 50 volunteers in the nonprofit that are just helping and getting the word out and promoting and organizing. And I feel like this is a movement that has to happen. So let's do it.
Wow. I didn't know about that piece about the nonprofit, and it's very inspiring. And it's like you took the first step into the Amsuf, into the Red Sea, and then everything just parted for you, and you're just going forward.
Exactly. And the only thing I can say, and this is interesting in terms of the money conversation we had before, is that when I started the global network, it has been from the beginning free, completely free. No membership, no payment, the Zooms, everything is free. And everyone was like, but you're a business coach, you're a business mentor. When are you going to monetize? Monetize. This word kept on coming back. And I knew one thing, that this network needed to stay free. This was an intuition that I had, and it was a lot of work. It was a lot of investment. It is still investment from, on my part, on my team's part, on everyone around. And I was like, I don't know why, but it has to stay free and it took 3 years. So for whoever is listening, it's a long time, 3 years, where I was, just saying, I need to hold on to that intuition. It has to stay free, until only a few months ago, when I said, I know why it has to stay free, because it is a nonprofit, because it's bigger than what we are. And I started building a board of advisor, and I started building chapters. And we have now 5 people in our board of advisors. We have 5 chapter leaders in different countries of the world, and we have those 50 volunteers. And so it's happening because I followed my intuition to keep this free and not to monetize it. And that is something that, yes, this is like putting the first, like you said, like, taking the first step and waiting for it to open. And yeah, that's what's happening.
I'm inspired. I've always been inspired by you. I came to an in-person, strategy event. I don't know if it was 2019 before COVID hit or 2018, whatever it was, but your leadership skills are phenomenal. And I imagine that the global network, the summit, everything that you lead is going to be beautiful and inspiring and uplifting for Jewish women everywhere.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Debbie. And thank you for being a role model for so many women entrepreneurs talking about this so important topic of money. I feel like you have just the right balance of, money is important, but look at also everything else, right? It's like so important to have this balanced approach. And really thank you for, doing the work that you do. I think it's really important.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thanks for being here. And I'll see you soon.
Yes. Thank you so much.
All right. Bye bye.